I would define diversity as not only about the things that make us different, but also finding a sense of unity in the fact that all of us are different, and that we all have our similarities as well as our differences.
I see diversity as recognizing that all of us are different in our own way, and instead of letting that separate or divide us, letting it be something we can celebrate and unite over and enjoy.
About appreciating each other's uniqueness and individuality.
It gives you a sense of who you are, and as long as you're comfortable with that, that can be a very beautiful thing.
Each and every one of us has a uniqueness to us that no one else has, but in that same vein, we are still all the same.
What makes me diverse? I am not neurotypical. I have ADHD.
I'm diverse because I'm a woman of color.
I'm a person of color, as well as I'm also part of the queer community.
So neurotypical basically means it's the way that most people's brains work. It's basically anyone who doesn't have ADHD or autism or some other form of something on that spectrum.
And both my parents are Puerto Rican, and thus so am I. I've lived my entire life in the United States, though.
The best way I could describe that is I have ADHD, so if a neurotypical person was given the math problem 5 plus 2, they would just say it's 7. I, as a person with ADHD, would think to myself, okay, well, I know that 4 plus 3 is 7, so if I take 1 away from the 3 and give it to the 4, that makes the 4 a 5 and the 3 a 2, so 5 plus 2 also must be 7.
I think my parents did an amazing job of raising my sister and I to embrace our culture, even though we were born here in the United States.
As much as it's different growing up here and only visiting there, it's still a culture that very much defines my life and something that I love to partake in with my family.
While I know a lot of other Filipino Americans were not able to grow up with a sense of their own culture, I'm so proud to have a strong sense of my cultural identity.
You know, that's definitely different than the way a neurotypical person would do it, but that's just the first way that my brain thinks to do it. And you know what? That I didn't get the wrong answer.
And as for my queer identity, I went on such a large journey in discovering that part of myself. And so it's so important to me that I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of that part of myself because of all the work that I put into discovering it.
Yes, a neurotypical person would normally have a more straightforward way of doing something, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the correct way to do that thing.
So as a gay Filipino, my identity is one of the most important parts of me, and one of the things that I'm most proud and confident in myself in.
That's just my brain.
It means having something that makes you a little different and having something that isn't universal.
Being proud of your own individuality.
I think being diverse really just gives a person more of a sense of identity and uniqueness.
Just by being you, you are bringing about a kind of change in the world and understanding that that's a sort of power that you have.
Being diverse can be a very special thing for some people and a very scary thing for some people. And I think the goal in the end for everybody is really to just find comfort in their diversity.
It's about knowing who you are and knowing that you don't have to be anyone else other than you, because there is no one like you in the world.
Sometimes just having a different identity makes a person uncomfortable, and having to figure out how to navigate that differently than other people makes a person uncomfortable, but, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Knowing that not being the norm, per se, isn't a bad thing.
Just diversity in general in the media is sometimes portrayed as a really ugly thing. It's always uniformity, and then someone who looks different or is different or thinks different or talks different, you know, they're always the bad guy.
There's always this message we have. It's like every human life is important. Everyone can change the world in some way. Like, you're important. And that's great.
ADHD isn't portrayed well in the media. They're always the butt to everyone's joke. They're the punchline. They're always the hyper energetic person, when that's not necessarily the case.
But then to go into most media and see only one kind of person represented, it's kind of saying, well, you're important, but not important enough to be shown and broadcasted to the general public.
Most females with ADHD do not actually have the hyperactivity. And I, because I'm a female with ADHD, did not have the hyperactivity. Therefore, I went undiagnosed for a very long time. And when I did try to get diagnosed in the 6th grade, teachers told my parents, oh no, she can't because she's not a troublemaker. She's not bouncing off the walls. When really I did have ADHD, and I was struggling very much because I could not figure out why I was doing things incorrectly. Or why I was having more trouble with things. And while not being neurotypical isn't necessarily a bad thing, when you go for most of your life being told that you're doing something wrong and you don't know why, that can be a bad thing because you start to question yourself and who you are and why you are that way, and that's never a fun thing to do.
So I feel as though diversity is reinforcing that message of everyone's important in their own ways, and they're important because we're all different and we're all unique.
People need to be able to look around and see themselves and understand that they're not alone and understand that they're not the only person of their race, of their sexuality.
The uniqueness we bring to everything we do is something that should be represented in the media that we're consuming and the media that shapes a lot of people's lives.
Representation in the media is very important for diversity because it normalizes it.
It's important for me to be diverse and to spread that message because the world is constantly changing, and as I said, we all do our part and we all carry on that message of how important it is to be yourself.
I think being diverse is so important in today's world, especially because we need people out there who will challenge the norm, who aren't like others, and who will bring new ideas and new perspectives and new experiences into each other's lives.
One person from Ireland will not really know what I've experienced in my life, and yet we're all human and we all share that same bond.
That's one of my favorite things about culture, is being able to learn from other people, and understanding that my way is not the only way that things can be done. As tacky as it sounds, diversity adds color to what would otherwise be a blank canvas of the world. And that's what I love about it.